setting value-based goals. So as you set your goals, you have your 5 core values there, right?
Mhm.
You can have more, but I'm saying keep it simple,
Yeah.
simple
Yeah.
and easy. 5. Sometimes it's harder to get to 5 than it is to get to 10. But the more concise it is, the more powerful it is
Mhm.
and how you implement them into your life. So when you're setting your goals, especially now that we're at the beginning of the year, really, I would do the core values first, and then I would set your goals because they're going to help you to set the right goals for you and then keep you on that north direction, following your true north. Welcome to the Let's Be Real podcast, genuine conversations for authentic living. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Lisa Allshafer, empowerment life coach and author.
And I'm Sondra Pariser, health and wellness entrepreneur and truth seeker and truth speaker.
And today's episode is about following your true north, the path to a purposeful life.
This truly is the path to a purposeful life. And I absolutely love, Lisa, that every time there's a subject that comes up, and I just want to say how grateful I am to you for putting it together because there is a lot of work that goes into it. But this is one that I think is going to really light you up. It lit me up when I heard it, and there's a lot of synchronicities in it. So go ahead and feel free, if you're so inspired, to hit the like and subscribe channel. And we appreciate you very much. And take it away, Lise.
Awesome. Well, speaking of synchronicity, so you gave me a deck of cards, oracle cards for
Mhm.
Christmas, and thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And the first card that I pulled from the deck was the North card. Let's
Mm.
see if I can hold it up to there, right? North card.
There you go.
And this episode had already been predetermined. We were going to talk about following your true north and the subject. So this was a very strong confirmation around, yes, we're doing the right podcast at the right time. And also north, this card does represent a lot about purpose. So it's
Mhm.
all connected. And when we're talking about following our true north, it's really talking about living a value-based life. So your core values are like your guideposts to keep you on track, the compass to keep you moving in the
Mhm.
direction that's really right for you. And so when we are following our true north, it's, you could also say we're following our highest self. We're following our authentic self. We're following our spirit and our
Mhm.
divine path. And our core values keep us on that path. So, I'll let you say a little bit about that, Sondra, because I know, you live your life so purposefully, and, you every, as myself too, but, we just keep moving in a direction that just brings new and exciting and some very unplanned things into our life because we are so driven now by, we talked about it in the past, our core values
Yeah.
and more and keep staying in alignment with those core values, which we're going to talk more about. But share a little bit about, I know you've shared in the past some things, but how your core values have changed your life.
Getting in touch with what they were in the first place was a huge start. And, you and I coming together, we were talking right before we started recording about how amazing just this time that we're living in, and how, yeah, okay, the outside is really intense, but for some reason on the inside, I am in harmony. I'm in synchronicity. I'm living from my true north. I'm living my life's purpose. And I want to say it's taken me my whole life to figure out what that is. And I think, and this is what we want to share with y'all, is that it's really coming to terms with who we are. And there is this short track to it now, because I think the louder the outside world is, um, and when I say the outside world, I mean like what's happening around the globe, what's happening inside our country or your country or wherever it is that you are in the world. We are all almost like ripping back this layer of deception. And you know, I I feel like I've been such a truth seeker for so long that as I watch the outside world crumble a little bit, a lot of it, it gets me really very excited because I know what's going to happen for sure. I know that inside me, my higher self, my soul self, is here on the planet for a reason, and connection to source and to God is really the magic inside. It's the inner standing, of course. And so following along in your true north has like, I mean, I'm just not even the same person I was a year ago as we are zipping right into 2024. Um, and that's really exciting. And, honestly, if I could get in there and heal all of my wounds, like everybody has the opportunity. And so as we're going along, I think one of the things, and remind me, because this is the download I got when I started looking at the notes for today, is that trying to be more of an observer of your thoughts rather than get emotionally entangled in, oh, this person did this or this person did that, or the world is this or the president's that, or and instead of like kind of taking it on, um watch it and see where it goes, and instead of feeling it. And that, Lisa, is a shortcut. Like,
Yeah.
it just came downloading into me, and I'm like, oh wow, we can really we all can, because there's just this veil that's been lifted, and so we get to get in touch with the power within.
Well, and that's a skill, right? To pull out and be the observer of these things instead of getting mired down. There, there's a lot of powers behind all these things that are going on the planet that are designed to upset you, that are designed to divide you. And so you are, you're
And
to have the skill.
it's to disempower people.
Yes.
Because if they can get people in a state of anger and fear, and boy, they do a bang up job on all of that,
Yeah.
um, they've got you. That's how they control us.
Yeah. Yes. And so, and it is designed to control us. It's so
Mhm.
designed. I mean, if you've woken up at all, you can see it. It's pretty obvious for a lot of people more than ever. So if it's not obvious, then hopefully this helps it to become more obvious that there are agendas all over the place. So to be able to observe it as it's an agenda, it's powers that don't have your best interest at heart, that are going on, but you don't have to participate. If you start getting upset about the things that are happening in the world, which it's just human to do that,
Yeah.
but just catch and correct. It's like, wait a minute, this is exactly what they want me. This is the state they want
Mhm.
me to be in. So I'm going to observe my own state of how I'm being. And I'm also going to just observe and say, there's a whole big thing going on here. And the way I can change it is to not participate.
Yeah.
That's how you can change it. The less we participate in it, the less power we're giving it, and the less power it has over us.
I'm
So,
going to use a quick example on this because
okay.
um, when the war in Ukraine started, I remember watching on the television, and I remember Alan getting really upset. And I remember going, why are we still doing this? Why are we still killing each other? Like,
Mhm.
whoa, why are we doing this? And then, of course, you have October 7th, the situation in Israel. And my husband being deeply Jewish, and his whole identity is tied into it, and watching his emotional experience through it all. But for me, from right out of the get go, I'm like, I am not participating. I
Mhm.
will not consent to anybody killing anybody else for any reason whatsoever. Period. And a story. As human beings and as humanity, we have um, this short window into taking a stand, and the stand is, I'm going to love other people. I'm going to have compassion for those people. I am, of course, people are dying, like, why are we doing this? Okay. Instead of getting angry, upset, or, just, I was observing it, and all I could do, and I still do it to this day, because there's so much of that still going on. And I would imagine 2024 is going to be a whole other pitfall of God knows what. I'm taking a stand, and I'm saying, a human life is a human life, and we should never take it at any cost. And so I send love and compassion to all of those who have lost loved ones, have lost their lives, or got caught up so closely into the experience of it all. And that is where I come from. And part of that is my experience over this last year of my own healing, is like, I'm not going to participate if it's not of love and peace and gratitude. It doesn't serve anybody. as far as, evolving as human beings go.
Yeah. And what you're describing are core values, right?
Hmm.
So the more you stay connected into those core values, like gratitude is definitely one of your core values, right?
Yes.
And, compassion and these things, we can have a lot of core values, but we really want to get clearly identified into what our core values are, because you can have all sorts of values, which is a wonderful thing. But the more you have them more concise, the easier it is to live your life by your core values. Otherwise, it just gets too much. But we'll
Yeah.
get into that in a bit. So,
Yeah.
where we're going to start today is the 4 gauges to help you see if you're aligned with your true north, if you're moving in that direction, if you're aligned with your core values. And there's 4 of them. So, the first one is happiness. So if you think of these gauges on a spectrum, and you see happiness on one end and misery on the other end, where do you fall? Right? Where are you on the happiness scale, the
Hmm.
spectrum? And
Hmm.
one of the things for you, Sondra, is, and we mentioned it in the past, is that happiness is also one of your core values,
Hmm.
right? And that's because that's how you gauge that's how you see a lot of your life. To me,
Right.
from how I see it, is does this make me happy or does it not make me
Hmm.
happy, right? And really how much you appreciate that. And a lot of people do, but it's just there's a you have a little more power behind your definition of happiness for your
Hmm.
life, right?
Yep.
And so if you start to move away from happiness, this is where it really impacts you. And of
Hmm.
course, not every day is happy, 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 but it's again, for you, it's a differently defined
Hmm.
state of being, right? Than
And I
just, I'm
really
happy.
appreciated
Yeah.
in one of our podcasts not too many weeks ago,
Mhm,
talking about happiness, and you brought
mhm,
up peaceful. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. Like,
mhm.
do I need to go running around being happy when, people are dying and there's awfulness in the world? And it's like, no, but I have a great sense of peace about at least where I'm at and where my family's at and where we're at, So, but yeah, happiness, like I wish I could go dancing around at, parties and, with my
Yeah.
fairy wings on and bouncing from person to person, which is what I do in a party. But
Right.
life doesn't feel that way at this moment in time, but it does feel overwhelmingly peaceful. And another thing too is the ripple effect that you and I've talked about. Um, this is another kind of gauge where happy misery, kind of gives you a little bit of a concept of it. Um, how you are in the world affects other people. And while I've always understood that, I have now, like a perfect example is my lady who does my waxing, right? My brow, my lip, and whatever. And I just love her to pieces. And we have these great conversations in 15 minutes. And I know when I hug her at the end, and how much can you bond in 15 minutes? But you'd be surprised what we've been through over the last like year and a half. She's the one that I remember going in there after my brother situation, right? I mean, I am a basket case mess, and she's like, what's going on? We have very, very similar, uh, kind of experiences in our traumatic childhoods, if you will. Um, but I know when I go and I see her and I give her a hug and she sees peace in me when she saw me without it, she
Mhm.
sees me happy now when she saw me without it. And so that is one of those things that you have to remember, like all the work that you're doing, the reason you're listening to Lisa and Sondra talk about, your true north, um, every little piece that you heal vibrates out there for others to see and believe that if you can, they can too. So
Right.
sorry, went on a little sideline there, but I think it's
Mhm.
what we're talking about.
Well, and remember, misery loves company. So
Mm,
there's going to be a lot of people on the misery side of things that aren't really even looking to be happy. They just want to sit in their misery because
mm,
you get attention, you get a story to tell, you get all these things.
mm,
And so that's where, misery loves company. And we've talked about the crab in the crab tray. If you're living at a misery vibration
mm.
and somebody else comes in and at a happiness vibration, well, misery loves company. So what are they going to do? They're going to like try to pull you down into their misery. because that's where they're used to. It doesn't make them a bad person. It just makes them a miserable person. And that's what the crabs in the crab tray do, is that if a crab tries to get out of the crab tray, the other crabs literally pull it apart
Yep.
and pull it back in. So, it's just recognizing that it's a gauge. When you
Yep.
learn how to read your life through like seeing them as gauges, it will give you so much information around what's going on internally. And so if you have things that are pushing your buttons, so to speak, and bringing up misery, well, it's because it's time to process whatever is going on within you that is miserable. It's not to keep getting mired down in misery. It's to address it. Like, what is this about for me? What is it that's in my life that's making me so miserable? And is it making you miserable? Are you miserable and attracting in miserable situations? Because guess what? You're a vibrational match to miserable if that's where you're living for
Just
whatever reasons. And
pay
remember,
attention.
we have
Yeah.
all sorts of psychological reasons why we live in misery, why we live in drama, why we live in all these things, because there's some sort of a psychological payback. And when you can start to identify, what do I get from this? Is it attention? Is it I'm the most important person in the room because I got, my drama going on or whatever it is. So it's just, getting honest with yourself and saying, what can I do? What is it about me that I can change so that I'm a different vibration, and I attract in or create better gauges in my life around what's being reflected back to me about what's going on inside of me. So
Mhm.
when the stuff comes up, it's needed to come up because it gives you an opportunity to heal it and then naturally and organically lift you to more of a state of happiness. But you
Mhm.
got to deal with all the muck that keeps you from being happy in the first place. So that's the first thing.
It's reminding me of that book that our beloved channeler years ago suggested we read, Radical Forgiveness.
Mhm.
And, for people who haven't read that book, it's talking about serious personal responsibility.
Yes.
I can't remember the details about it, but it was a sister who just, woe is me, and, got cheated on. And it was just this whole thing, uh, who this book was kind of portrayed after. And ultimately, it was the brother that guided her to really look at, okay, so wait a second. So what's real? Let's look at the big picture and operate from a premise of, if you feel an emotion, it's yours to heal.
Mhm.
And that's so beautiful, right? Because, and I mean, Alan and I've been through this, but this was, again, I think it was in 2014, a long time ago, um, that book was in my periphery. I think there's still value to it today because I know the message in the book is personal responsibility. And even
Mhm.
that changed her whole life by just
Yeah.
starting to wait a second. Okay. If I'm miserable, or somebody's cheated, oh, you've hurt me, or whatever. I mean, look, I mean, there's some people that have a more horrific childhood than I do, and mine was pretty bad. But walking around, and I remember this at 18 years old. I was 18 years old. No, maybe I was 17 because I'd moved out of the house, and I just took on this attitude of like, I can't keep blaming my parents for the crap that they did, and I got to go live my life because they're not paying my bills. Like,
Yeah.
so what's the point? And I had my older sister who just would not stop with the woe is me, And so I think it was actually my older sister that I realized, like, I don't want to be like that. I'm not going to blame someone else for my reality. It's time to take personal responsibility and heal our wounds. So,
Yeah. And there's a difference between being a victim and being in victim consciousness.
well,
Because
yeah.
I think everyone at some level has been victimized in some way.
Oh, yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's not about diminishing what has happened to someone. It's how they respond to it, and is where you have the ability to change the direction, so you're not a vibrational match to more victimization in the future.
Hmm.
Right. And that's
Yep.
the personal responsibility. Okay, this did happen to me. I can't change it, but what I can change is the work needed to heal it. And
Hmm.
then, because you'll never change what happened. You can only change how you feel about what happened, and
Right.
turn it around, and make it something that drives you to a state of empowerment instead of a state of victim consciousness,
For sure.
disempowerment. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Right. So the second gauge is, think of the spectrum again. And on one end of the spectrum, you have fulfillment. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have emptiness. So if you look at this, it's looking at, well, what am I filling myself up with? Am I
Mhm.
filling myself up with, things that are fulfilling to me, that feel purposeful and meaningful? Am I filling myself up with love and compassion
Mhm.
and empathy? Am I filling myself up with, people in my life that I enjoy being around and work that I enjoy doing? Or are you filling yourself up because you feel an emptiness inside? Are you trying to fill the void that lives inside? And that type of filling up is usually where a lot of addictions live. I'm trying to fill a void, which is very different.
Mhm.
That's really you're what you're doing is you're resisting emptiness, and then it takes more and more, whatever the addiction is, to try to fill that void, but the void will never ever be filled by the substance or whatever it is the addiction is, rooted in. So that is a big one, because that's where lack lives. That's where
Mhm.
scarcity lives, which is just a human condition that's so powerful. Even with people who have a lot of money, they can have all sorts of scarcity, even
Mhm.
around money. So it's never enough
Oh
money,
yeah.
or it's
Yeah.
never enough, attention, or it's never enough love, or it's never enough whatever it might be. And therefore they just keep going, and they're never happy, but they're certainly never fulfilled.
Yeah, you bring me back to smoking. Every time I think about that, I'm like, it was just the one thing in my that was a constant in my life since I was 12. On and off and on and off and on and off. I can't tell you how many times like I'd quit, but the second something got out of control, or I felt like I was out of control, or I had no control over whatever, and I'm not like, there it was again, and
Yeah.
I think about it to this day. It's not been that long since I put it down. I'll never pick it back up. I'm like, wow. So July 3rd, I think I'm, what is it, 6 months now? Whoa. That it, to get under the emotion of it, and identify where and why I started in the first place, made so much sense. Like, oh yeah, life got out of control. I'll never forget the first time I picked up a cigarette and what had happened. And it was, my grandmother did something to my mom's ex-boyfriend at the time, and accused him of molesting us, which wasn't true. And he was the best thing that we've ever had in our life, up until, I mean, at that time. And then for a long, long time, he helped morph me into the person I am today. And he believed in me. And so this devastating experience, I used every profane word I could think of at my grandmother when the police showed up. And it was from there that my dad and Carol, my stepmom, and my grandmother, like, we ended up having to move back in with them. And Barry wanted to keep us. And so, anyway, so I remember getting to the house and stealing my dad's Marlboro Reds and going into the bathroom, and like, my whole life as I've been dealing with the smoking thing, I never connected the emotion of out of control to the actual time and why it happened,
Yeah.
right?
The
And so now,
catalyst.
and yeah, and now it's gone. And I'm like,
Mhm.
I still like, I pat myself on the back all the time, but because it's gone. Like, there's been a lot of stuff that's happened over, in the last 6 months that are way out of control. Um, as far as just, I mean, world events and feelings, and like, I just don't have that. That's not my go-to. But I will say, when I dream about it, I know I'm dreaming about it and I actually enjoy it, which is a whole other funny thing. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
you can't, there's nothing that will fill the void unless you get underneath it.
Yeah. Well, and
It-
the root of addiction is the need to feel good. So
yeah.
that's why it's so important to know how to deal with the feelings that don't feel good, those uncomfortable feelings, those painful feelings, those scary feelings. Because if you don't deal with them, they end up dealing with you. And addiction is one way that they can really deal with people, because I mean, addiction can kill people. It can destroy relationships, destroy lives. There's just obviously so many ways that addiction can take someone down. And then addiction can just be a constant irritant in your life. I mean, I've, said many times over, I'm, like a chocolate addiction. I mean, I've had a chocolate addiction since I've been a kid. Okay. So I'm going to give just a little funny story about that.
I love
So
this.
I'm with my dad. I don't know how old I was, maybe 8, 9, 10. I don't know. So I just don't remember the ages, but, my parents were divorced and I was staying with him over the weekend, and, the weekend dad, he gives me a king size Hershey bar when they were actually king size Hershey bars. Cause this is now 40, 50 years
Yeah.
ago, 50 years ago,
Yeah.
probably 50 years ago. Anyway, and a king size, um, bag of M&Ms.
Ooh.
I mean,
Ooh.
these were big back then, right?
Yeah.
Shrinkflation had not taken
Yeah.
hold yet.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was just in chocolate heaven. But, give a 10-year-old or however old I was, at the time, too much chocolate, what's going to happen? They're going to start to feel sick. And when I mean, it was I mean, it hadn't even had time to, mix up with any, acid or anything yet. And it
You
was
must have eaten
already
it
on
fast.
its way back out, right? And I got sick all over his television. Now, this is an older television. It had the little, a lot of people probably
Speakers
won't
on the
even know this.
side, the fabric on the
Speakers
side.
on the side.
Yeah.
Yes, the fabric on the side. And where did I get it on? The fabric on the side or
Oh,
whatever, And it
yeah.
was like, but it was pretty much just chocolate, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Anyway, so so that happened, and then I don't know how many, I don't know, maybe it was a couple years later, a year later, whatever, and he was with my stepmom then at that time, and she's cleaning the TV, and she says, "Don, what's all over this TV?"
well,
And he started laughing. He says, "Oh my gosh, that's when Lisa got sick from all that chocolate I gave her." Isn't that hilarious? Oh my gosh. So funny. So anyway, so that's been around for a long time. Now, I don't eat chocolate, and I didn't think I could ever kick chocolate, right? I tried to do my best in moderating, but since I started this whole, different way of eating, I cut out all the sugar and basically the carbs, 90% of them anyway. And I know if I go to chocolate, it's like, ah, game over. But I don't miss it.
so let me ask you a
Hmm.
question.
Hmm.
So chocolate, because that was never my thing, right?
Right.
Food has never been a thing for me.
Yeah.
Food is a thing for a lot of people.
It
Chocolate
was
free.
totally a thing for me, and more than just chocolate. Yeah.
So what were you um what were you stuffing? What was it? What were you trying to fill? Did you ever identify the exact?
I haven't actually thought of that.
Hmm.
But I was probably, I've said many times over, insecurity, and insecurity is fear, right? So it's a
Mm,
comfort. Chocolate is a comfort
comfort.
food,
Yeah.
and it's sweet too. So bringing more sweetness into my life,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And so the chocolate, again, it's just been so prominent throughout basically my entire life. So in June, when I started, keeping it more to meat based, um, food, uh, I it was a few months had passed, and I might have said it to you, but I said
Yeah.
it to somebody, that I'm like, you know what? I
I'm not
haven't
even
even thought
thinking
of
about it. Yeah.
chocolate.
You,
And it
it
was
was me
so,
because you and I were both talking about the chocolate and the smoking. We were both like,
yeah, it
what
didn't,
happened?
it's not like something I'm trying not to eat. It's just something I haven't even thought about eating.
Yeah.
And I've had it once. I went out to dinner. I had it once, and it was good, but it wasn't anything like, oh my gosh, now that I've had it, I'm going to have some more, because I know it's
Yeah.
an addiction, right? I
Yeah.
know. So I was able to do that, and I won't say I'll never have chocolate, but I will definitely not have the way they eat the way
A
it has in
whole
the
king
past.
size Hershey bar with a bag of M&Ms to boot.
King size bag of M&Ms. Yeah,
King
I don't
size.
think I couldn't have eaten the whole thing, but I'm sure I ate enough of it just to make me a little ill. So
Yeah.
anyway, so that's a little chocolate
Perfect
story. But
story.
yeah. So the third gauge is on one end of the scale is simplicity, and the other end of the scale is complexity. And so now you think about that. If you think about how complex is your life and how many things do you turn, say, the mountains or the molehills into mountains, right?
Hmm.
Is that how it said? Yeah. Turning
Yeah.
molehills into mountains.
Yep.
Um, and so we can take something that's very simple and just complex it, bring it all sorts of complexity into it and complex it up. I don't think that's
Complex.
grammatically correct, but you get the point.
New
And
word.
one of the things, yes, complexing it up. So, um, but what happens is when things are complex, it's you don't have clarity. It's hard to see the truth of things. It's hard to see, solutions and direction and all these things because it clouds up your life. And one way you can create complexity in your life is by how you communicate. So if you skirt around issues, if you avoid, what happens first of all is it starts to build up inside you because you're not speaking, what you need to be speaking, but then you're not getting your message across either. And so people are trying to figure out what is she trying to say or what is he trying to say? And then trying to second guess. And all this does is it just brings in a whole lot of complexity and it mires up the communication system, which in relationships is going to create a challenge. I know we've talked in the past about um, the need to be understood, right? So that's been one that
Yeah.
you've worked on a lot in your communication style with people in your life, and
Yeah.
and
We'll just leave it
so
at that, Alan.
yeah, keep um, so keep it simple. The whole KISS method, keep it simple. We'll say silly, is such. It's been around for however, but it's so true. Keep things simple. And when we move into complexity, it can really gum us up in our life. And I remember when I was in Colorado and I was coaching just on the phone at that time because I moved out of Las Vegas for a year. And I was talking to somebody who just had so much complexity in their life. And it dawned on me, wow, I've really simplified things in my life because I just had the contrast in the moment. But it was the first time it really dawned on me, kind of like the chocolate thing. It kind of dawned on me that I had really simplified my life. And quite honestly, my life is pretty darn simple. It's not boring, but it is simplified, which
Hmm.
makes room for so much more for someone to be able to accomplish it brings that ease. Simplicity brings ease into your life.
Oh, yeah.
Complexity brings hard into your life. And so the more you can create simplicity in your life, that's the whole minimalism
Yeah.
philosophy is simplifying your life, get rid of all
Yeah.
the stuff and
Hire an
whatnot.
assistant.
Hire an assistant.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it even just Alan and I love using him as an example because he's such a great mirror for me. And
I'm
I
sure he loves himself being used as an example.
thank you, honey, for being my never-ending example. But this is like relationships. I think if you're in a
Yes.
marriage, if you are in a relationship that you are living with another human being, they are a direct mirror of who you are and what you
Yeah.
need to heal. And that's why I love using him because it's like of course he's my mirror.
Mhm.
And we've gotten so I mean it's just it's night and day from where we were a year ago for sure. So we had this thing happen. So now we're getting organized, right? We're trying to simplify our life. And so where are the areas of opportunity that we can outsource and hire somebody and then at the same time 2024 we've got so much going on as far as what we can do in our business and how we can help people and it's very very exciting but it does take a lot of work like a lot of organizational work. And so somebody popped up and we had this big long conversation because I'm like, I create my reality. I'm very acutely aware of exactly what I want my life to look like. So I design it the way that I want my life to look. And there are just certain people I would rather not have in my life because they are, um, well, in this one particular situation, um, not a nice person, like just not a nice person. So, um, some people would call him an arrogant businessman. I just say you're not a nice human, and we'll leave it at that. So as I'm creating all this beautiful, magical stuff that I want my business to look like in the year 2024, as I know it's going to be exciting, and I also know purpose-driven life, my time is getting pulled over here into kind of sharing, you and I doing our podcast, me getting involved in the astrological community, getting also involved in my own personal community, with, getting into yoga. I got this whole thing. Anyway, so we have this long conversation about why not this one person. And anyway, this one person ended up on the list. And I was like, I look over at Alan, I'm like, really? Like, wait a second. This wasn't just a flash in the pan conversation. This was an in-depth discussion about exactly what Sondra's trying to create in this beautiful little bubble of happiness. So, um, you'd be really proud of me because, and I'm sure he is too. Like it was so easy for me to identify. There were reasons that have nothing to do with me, why it is what it is, right? But just to see it and just go, well, I'm not going to step down and say, I didn't say that or we didn't have a conversation about it. I'm going to confront it. So just get the elephant out of the room and then move on. And it's done and it's over. And so we still get to go on and, I'm just so excited about simplifying my life. And I think you hit it on the head. I boredom doesn't even exist in my realm. It could, it has. This is a very new journey for me. I feel so fulfilled. I feel like there's not enough time in the day. I wake up in the morning and I'm like, ooh, what am I going to learn today? I've never been like this before, but I feel the more we slip into our true north, you too, it's exciting and it's fun and it's purposeful and, always staying at the focus of, like there is a ripple effect. Who are you going to affect today? And I try to always just keep that, you know, how we treat other people is, we had this in a podcast, right? The checker at the grocery store,
Right.
make a compliment, hold space, have compassion, send some love, whatever it is. And the ripple effect is not only will it affect them, it affects you too.
Yeah.
And I think over the last handful of months, that's why I feel so I'm lit up. I'm excited.
Yeah.
We're moving forward.
Yeah, me too. I'm again, I know 2024, who knows what's going to happen in 2024. It's going to be a lot going on in kind of both directions, if you will, positive and negative, but I'm excited. I
Me
am
too.
so excited about 2024. I'm excited about our podcast. I'm excited about the programs I'm bringing out and launching. And
Yep.
I'm excited about just, what 2024 has to bring,
Hmm.
just the surprises, because the surprises are the best, right?
Yeah.
And, I'm kind of starting off in kind of a new space for myself, my body for sure, but just I'm going to be moving into my, like, the 0 on the end with the 60 going on next year, but it's not so much as like, oh, I'm going to be 60. It's like, okay, let's
Yeah.
see what the 60s are going to bring me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be the most youthful 60 I can be, but at the same time, still have all the experience and the wisdom I've gathered along all these 60 years I've been on this planet, at least in this lifetime. And so I'm really excited about that, and obviously sharing it with you, and it's just I'm just excited.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Me too. Yeah. And
yeah,
we're happy to have y'all on our ride because it's going to be fun.
that's right. We're just going to keep getting better and better. I think we're doing pretty good. I think this is I think our 10th or 11th episode. And I mean,
I
we
can't
didn't
even remember when
practice.
we started it. Was it October? Like, I don't know.
I'm not sure. Well, it's once a week, so few months ago, almost 3
Yeah.
months ago. But we're getting used to doing this. We're
Yeah.
it's becoming a little more becoming a little more natural, I guess you could say. And yeah, so we'll, just like anything you do, you just continue to up your skill level at things and just relax into it. It just becomes second nature over time. So I think we're doing pretty darn good for just starting out.
I do too. And you know what? It's
Yeah, not bad.
we said this a couple podcasts ago. I think it was a couple podcasts ago. Like, we're encouraging all of you to follow your purpose, um and we can just flood the internet with positivity and, love and compassion and heart. And gosh, if we could just overwhelm the internet, do it, because it is. I feel, I mean, even last night you and I were talking about a situation that had happened, all the synchronicities in that, and we were laughing. You're like, wow, wow, wow. Like, even
Yeah.
with the card, you pulling
Yeah.
the North card.
North Carolina. Yeah.
Okay,
I,
at
pu-
some
I
point in
pull.
time, coincidences are not
Yeah.
coincidences.
I don't know if I shared this or not. I don't think I did, but so I pulled the card out of the deck, and then I downloaded the app, and I pulled the same card on the app. I'm like, okay, I don't remember if I said that or not. So if I'm repeating
You
myself,
didn't say that. You didn't say that, which I
yeah,
think is
but
just
yeah,
so stinking cool.
yeah.
And,
So again,
these are, you and I haven't really dabbled in the metaphysical I mean, we have, but,
mhm,
um, universe gives us signs.
yeah,
Lisa's got her numbers, and, I got my shtick, and if you ask, you will. So, asking about my guides, like,
mhm,
I think we did this in the last episode. I now have a relationship, and it's a whole lot of fun, and we're just kind of
mhm,
flinging along here. And you know, I used to think that some of this stuff was like super hokey, the synchronicities and all that. Now I'm just like, okay, I'm all in. I'm all in.
mhm,
Give me signs, because the signs are just everywhere when you ask for them.
yeah.
Which brings us to our last point, which is the most fun of all.
Yes,
You want to take it away?
yes. And so the last gauge is freedom, right? So on one end of the spectrum is freedom, and on the other end of the spectrum is confinement. And so many people, I mean, so many people, when they join the company that you're involved with, are looking for freedom. That's
Mm-hmm.
probably one of the biggest whys of why they join your
Yep.
company, right? Is for financial freedom, time freedom, all sorts of freedom.
Yep.
And it's so important to people. That's why a lot of people become entrepreneurs. That's, start their own businesses and things like that. Although they often find that they, they don't always get that same freedom that they
Yeah.
thought they would get.
Right.
But ultimately, it's looking at how free do you feel to be yourself? Or do you feel confined trying to be somebody you think you should be? Right? That's a huge one. Talking about authenticity. We
Yep.
spend a lot of time on that one. And the last podcast is about being authentic. Well, when you're authentic, you're free to be who you are. And there is an absolute, I can't say freedom because I'm using the same word to describe it, but it just it absolutely enhances your life like no other characteristic that you could have is freedom. Free to be yourself, comfortable in your own skin, free to be you. And that's where so much of our ego comes into play, is when we feel constrained to be someone we think people will like, someone we think people will approve of. We want to make sure we're not judged, and everything just keeps
Mm-hmm.
confining us into smaller and smaller and smaller packages, if you will, energetically. And so that's why so many people become so, you know, tight and like they can't just, why can't I just relax? Why can't I just be who I am? Because you have so much of this, which is really resistance. You have so many needs hooked into other people and
Mm-hmm.
how you appear to other people and trying to fit in and belong and all these things. And all they do is they move you towards confinement instead of freedom. You might lose people if you are who you are, and you might not. That's the calculated risk we all take in life. But the
But you
more
will get
you
to a point where you just don't care.
care,
I
yeah.
don't care.
It's
Yeah.
more important to be who you are than it
Mm-hmm.
is to keep people in your life who don't accept you for who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't accept you for who you are, then why would you want them in your life anyway?
You shouldn't want them in your life.
Right?
And again,
Yeah.
this goes back into just absolutely everything that we've been sharing and talking about so far, which is why it's my favorite bullet point. Um,
Mhm.
I'll speak specifically to United States of Americans. Our Constitution was founded on this principle of freedom, freedom to worship the way we want to worship, freedom to be who we want to be. This amazing document called the Constitution. And how funny, we're going into 2024, an election year. I have to tell you, if you would have asked me a year ago if I was ready for this year to be another election year, I would have cringed and like, oh no, I don't want another election year. And this time I'm like, freedom is not something that you hear about in other countries, but you hear about it here. It's why our country's so amped up right now. It's not even funny. Um, but we will fight for that Constitution because it does mean freedom, freedom from bondage. Um, as just to kind of think about this in a bigger term, whether it's, yeah, of course, all the resistance and the feelings, they're inside you. But when you become free of that, you will command freedom of all kinds. And really, there are these universal laws, we've talked about this too, that guide the human experience to living right within the universal principles, God's laws. And our beautiful Constitution is kind of mimics a lot of that. So as we go into 2024, we're going for freedom, baby. I want to know the truth about everything. Um, if you feel like you are stuck in some type of a belief system, belief structures, pay attention, think bigger, think outside the box. I think every single thing that we thought to be true, we're going to bump up against some real truths, which I'm very excited about. I'm a truth seeker, I'm a truth speaker, and I don't care where the truth takes me. I want to be free. I want to be told the truth. Otherwise, we're just in bondage.
And the truth shall set you free.
And it's freedom. Ah, see,
Yeah.
I'm like, I looked at that. I'm like, oh, that's like the best so far. Freedom, because
Yeah.
it's so, there's so
There's so
much,
much to it.
there's so much to it. There's so much teeth in it. There's so much power in
Mhm.
it, because first you got to get free of the stuff inside, the inner standing, our inner world, in order to be free. Like boredom, it's that word again. Like once I started just digging in under, and then I went through this, and after Miracle Monday, I just went through this amazing, um, just soul searching. Like, what does it mean to be human? Like, why are we here? What are we made of? What are we really made of? What do we know? What do we not know? And that question has just like, I mean, I feel like I got a pretty good handle on it, which I think is why I'm so excited. Because I
Mhm.
think that everybody's going to be able to tap into it. For me, it's always been the most important thing. What is the truth?
And there's another saying that says the truth hurts. How I look at it is when you're not in alignment with truth and you find out the truth is when it hurts. And that's I think what a lot of people are already experiencing, but are
Yeah.
also what are gonna be experiencing more intensely as this time that we're in goes
Yeah.
by, because we're finding out there's more exposure of things that we believe to be true that aren't, and it's been painful.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's where it's like, okay, but better to be in pain because you're seeing the truth than to live in false and to live in lie. Because when we are not in aligned with truth, we are not as free as we can possibly be. Right. So if we are living in a confined state, then we'll allow our freedoms to be taken away
Yep.
because it's too uncomfortable to fight for them. It's too uncomfortable to have them in our lives. So it's like, well, let's just be passive and just let them take them away, which then can go against probably several core values, if not many core
Yep.
values. And then we become more and more confined because definitely our freedoms have been slowly, we've been complacent in our freedoms. And now they're really going after them like hardcore.
Yeah.
And so, but actually that's probably good news, because if they go too fast, it'll
Oh, they're
backfire on
going
them.
Mach speed right now. They're going
It'll
they're going
backfire.
Mach
Yeah.
speed. And you know, on the freedom note, when I got deplatformed from Twitter,
Mhm.
um, when was that? October of 2020? I don't remember.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm not
um,
sure.
I went through a really dark time. Like I was censored. Well, what the heck am I saying? What was I saying? Um, yeah, and got kicked off. I'm still not allowed back on Twitter. It is so frustrating. I keep trying to create another account, and then I go, okay, whatever. I guess I'm still a threat to no idea what. Um, but it did. It felt like you're trying to silence me. What am
Mhm.
I saying? I'm just asking questions is all I was doing. Asking questions, questioning the narratives, all of the narratives. And for that they silenced me. And now, as it is, 2024, I like they ain't shoving no genie back in the bottle. And I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about truth. And it's astonishing to me that you look at um and not to go a little political, but I mean, at this stage in the game, it's common sense. They've released the UFO files. They've released the JFK files. They released the January 6th tapes. So if you're not paying attention, all of this is going to start to really, I mean, the biolabs and COVID and all these things this is not a secret anymore. And it's not hard to find the truth. And so, but if you turn on the mainstream narrative, you're going to get the mainstream narrative and you're going to get scared because there's a new variant. I was just reading about this morning. I'm like, okay, really? Like, I literally laugh right now when I see headlines about whatever. Okay, they're taking Trump off the ballot. I don't care because they're speeding things up so fast. They're getting really, really sloppy. And when I say they, I mean the people that don't have humanity's highest um, ideals at heart.
They're moving towards
That's who they
confinement.
are.
They're moving
Yes.
towards confinement and limitation.
Yeah.
Whether you are a Trump supporter or not a Trump supporter, that's not the issue. It's the issue is that they're making the choice. Well, this seems to be one person, but it's really not one person. There's probably a whole bunch of people behind that one person saying, do this, right? To limit our choices, but at least the choice of not to vote for him or the choice to vote for him, right? It's not
Right.
about Trump. None of the stuff's ever been about Trump, first of all.
Nope.
And so, but ultimately it's recognizing that this machine, this propaganda machine, and this machine that's in it's, in there, which is not rooted, it's rooted in, not healthy agendas, right?
Yeah.
Malintent. It's rooted in malintent to take away our power, the freedom of choice,
Mm-hmm.
and the freedom of living, which was what happened in COVID, right? And even the power of choice around the vaccines. I won't go, we're not going into all that, but just the power of choice. And
Well, and
so,
that's and not to go into any of that, but to
mhm,
say that it's astonishing to me. I mean, I've made an entire career, a very successful 7-figure income talking about getting neurotoxins and carcinogens out of your everyday cleaning products, personal care products. You got to supplement where our soils are being depleted, our food supplies being tainted, our water's full of all sorts, again, neurotoxins. I've made an amazing living off of that.
right.
And today, and this is the truth. I can't tell you how many people I talk to now. I'm like, I used to pick on the 3-letter agencies, most specifically the EPA, the FDA, and those types of, the ones that are supposed to keep us healthy. Um, and now it's like everybody knows, but the people that I'm talking to, it's like they're trying to kill us, and it's like, but they are. You're like, wow, that's pretty wild. Now, I don't buy into any fear. I just do the best I can, in my home and with our food and with, what we put on our kids and in our kids and in ourselves and in our home. Bless the animals always, right? And so none of that phases me. But it's astonishing in 2024 and I talk to a lot of people all the time So it's neat for me to go, oh my gosh, it's not Sondra pre-COVID or even pre-Trump, talking about harmful ingredients in everyday products. Why are they sitting on our store shelves? I've been questioning that forever. Um, and we should all be questioning that. But anyway, the truth is out. You can't stuff the genie back in the bottle. All we can do, and really, Lisa, this is why we're here, is to help people embrace their personal freedom.
Yeah.
Break the bondages of emotions that we've suppressed or that have been hidden from us. Let's get them up. Let's get them up. Let's get them out. Let's process them. Because the more free we become, and when I say we, I mean humans, the more free we become, that's how we take our power back. And one specific chemical, like there's fluoride. Oh, I can't even think of the other one right now. Fluoride in particular, your pineal gland. This is not woo-woo stuff.
Yeah.
These are facts. Your pineal gland, which is your
Lots of,
source to all things, source to the one creator inside your brain. What they've been trying to do is calcify and toxify it so you can't see clearly. And what we're doing is we're saying, oh, we're off to the races here. This is great. I want to be connected to the one creator. I want to be connected to source. I want to feel what it feels like to be living a soul-based life in this human experience. So to be free. There's my tirade. I shall stop there.
Free the pineal.
Free the pineal. The pine cone. And I would predict, Lisa, that as we enter into 2025, a year from now, you and I will be having many conversations about the power that resides inside the human body. And because there will be so much more truth that you and I will be sharing with everybody as it gets talked about, as it starts coming out. We're going to use these facts and this freedom of information to empower people, and there's no fear. And it's a very exciting time, and I'm so happy to be with you.
Yes, I am happy to be with you and happy to be doing this and happy to be with all of you who are sharing the journey, because it's a movement. That's what it is. It's a movement.
So, you almost could get me teary-eyed on that. It's true. It's a movement.
It's a movement.
And we're here for it. So, did we forget anything?
Well, no, we've got quite a
I'm like, I got so excited about freedom.
I know. You're on a roll today. That's okay. We'll move through these, and that's really how to integrate integrate values into living a value-based life, basically, is how to say that. And so the first step is in really identifying your core values. And we talked about that in the last one. Identify your core values. There's a lot of exercises out there to identify your core values, but I would narrow them down to 5 of your core values. And we talked about integrity being one of your core values, because if you don't have integrity, then you're not going to be able to uphold the other core values. So put on integrity on that list of your core values as like the staple one, right? But family can be a core value, compassion can be a core value, authenticity can be a core value. One of the things that I had an experience with years ago when I was working with like a business-based company, and they talked a lot about values, and Dr. Kwan, Julie, and I were doing.
I was just going to say, was it? Yeah,
we were doing an exercise together about really narrowing down our core values. And one of the things that I was really contending with is moving from individual coaching to group coaching, like making a full shift to no more individual coaching to all group coaching. And I was just having a really hard time with it. and I kept saying, I just don't want to lose the impact. And I don't know how many times I said it, but then Julie said one day, I remember we were in her kitchen at her house, and she said, well, is impact on your core values list? And I'm like, it's not.
Yeah.
And she said, because every time you talk about it, you get a little emotional. I said, you're right, I do. So impact, that's how I came upon impact. Not because I was looking at impact, but because when I felt I wouldn't have it, it actually hurt. If I can't have impact, then what's the point, kind of kind of a thing. And so impact became front and center on one of my core values, because I think it's important. It's just, you want to make an impact too, right? And
Yeah.
we want to make an impact, but that has definitely settled in. And I came upon it so organically with the help of Julie, right?
Hmm.
To help me to see it, which is why
Hmm.
we need that feedback, because we can't always see it. We're too close to it, which we talked about last time as well, seeking
Hmm.
feedback. So identifying those core values, and you've had impactful experience that you've talked about in the past about with integrity, and coming upon that through the exercise and all that. And you can go back to the last one. We'll
The
put
very expensive
it'll
silver
be at the
belt.
end.
Yeah.
Yes, it's got the silver belt. We won't go
Yeah.
through that again, but it's just a very powerful thing to do for yourself, and will keep you aligned with those values. The second one is setting your goals, setting value based goals. So as you set your goals, you have your 5 core values there, right?
Hmm.
You can have more, but I'm saying keep it simple,
Yeah.
simple
Yeah.
and easy. 5. Sometimes it's harder to get to 5 than it is to get to 10, but the more concise it is, the more powerful it is,
Hmm.
and how you implement them into your life. So when you're setting your goals, especially now that we're at the beginning of the year, really, I would do the core values first, and then I would set your goals, because they're going to help you to set the right goals for you, and then keep you on that north direction, following your true north. The third one is to integrate your values into your daily habits. Again, once you establish those core values, you're going to see where you're not aligned in your daily habits, and where you are aligned. So when you
Hmm.
start to do things just on a daily, everyday basis, then that's where you're going to find, oh, wait a minute, I'm starting to veer off path here. And then those are the easier ones to catch and correct. And it's
Hmm.
not about judging them. It's about, or judging your, whatever it is that you're doing. It's about catching and correcting it, so that you can get back into alignment. Remember, they're like guideposts. You can even think of them as like in bumper cars, that your values will keep you on track.
Yeah.
Nope, you're bumping up against,
Yeah.
you're going outside of those core values. And then just reflecting, having regular reflection throughout your life. We talk about reflection all the time, but really it's being reflective in what you're doing in your life, because your values will determine how you choose, your choices, your behaviors, what you say to, how you are in your relationships, how you are with your health, how you are in your life. They're just keep the reflection going, and also use reflection, your gauges, those
Mm.
4 gauges, as reflections to, well, wait a minute here. As I look at my life, I see I have miserable people here who are reflecting back to me the vibrational match of having misery inside here. So you also want to look at it from that perspective, as well as what's being reflected back to you. And then the last one is just practice, mindful decision making, because we make so many decisions in our life. And, it just takes one really bad decision to change the trajectory of our lives. And when we go in with our values, and see, the more you do this, they're just in there, they're embodied.
Hmm.
They're more natural to just, yes, of course, that's not in my value system, I'm not going to make that choice. And we're tugged back and forth, when we have certain temptations or opportunities that come our way. Well, if I take this opportunity, but I'm going to be away from my family for you know 10, 15 more hours a week, and if family's your core value, then it's time to maybe reevaluate that opportunity, because it may not be aligned with truly what your core values are. So that's a quick that was a quick summary of
I
5
just want you to
ways.
dig. I just want you to
Hmm.
dig into the last one, which is, and
Yep.
this is a word that we're going to be using often.
Hmm.
Mindfulness.
Yes.
So, um, just give one brief example, because I think it's one of those words right now that's a little convoluted, and it's used
Hmm.
in lots of different um, like spiritual realms, but it's not. It's actually not that word will bump up against too. But mindfulness is so important. So just really quick, give one example.
Well, mindfulness is awareness around, it's awareness around what it is that you're doing in the moment, in the present. you know you're looking at, even in the last podcast we talked about, understand your motivation. So when you're, say, making a decision and you feel like, oh my gosh, this is the best opportunity ever, right? And your excitement and your whatever is just having you maybe jump in too fast and not even being mindful of what the long-term consequences are of this decision that feels so exciting in the moment. And then you jump in and then you get the consequence that follows. It's like, oops, I
Mhm.
jumped in and now I recognize there's more to it than I realized. And now I'm experiencing consequences to my choice that I didn't anticipate because I jumped too fast. So mindfulness kind of slows you down a bit and also has you tune into, speaking of being in line with your intuition and your spirit and all that and God, give yourself some time to just,
Sit with it.
marinate on it.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
And,
so
and
that's why I wanted you to just I'll give you the most perfect example, and you were along the ride for this.
mhm,
Our company asked Alan and I to, our CEO actually asked us if we would go out to Thailand. And this is the beginning of December. And I think they gave us like a 2-week notice. And we're like, freak out. Are you kidding me? Go to Thailand? Like, this is amazing. And so we instantly said yes. And then they even said that we could bring the kids. And so we're like, okay, well, let's see if we can work this thing out. And they're just, it, just be aware of what's happening, right? Could we have forced, a square peg into a round hole? Absolutely. What would have been the consequences of that? Um, so interestingly enough, as the whole thing fell apart, and it was all just because we were paying attention, there was a lot to it that didn't fit, right? Our kick reflex was we were so excited. There's no way we could have brought the kids. It's a 24-hour flight each way, that on and on and on and on. But then the people that were going to be taking care, like, it was just this whole thing. And
mhm.
so it all kind of came to a moment of nope. And that was that.
And
So
it also was bringing in complexity.
yes. Oh, dear God. All of the moving parts, right? So, yes. And so after, I think it was just like 2 or 3 days where, again, we were kind of forcing it. Um, then you just release it and you go, oh gosh, that felt so good. That would have been really overwhelming and stressful and complex and all those things. And then, who knows, we would have been across the world without our little girls, and what would happen if something happened. And you know what? Something did happen. So our very dear friends who were supposed to take care of the girls, um, he is actually in the ICU and waiting on a heart transplant.
Wow.
Yeah. So we say lots of prayers for our
Yes.
beloved friend. And I have nothing but faith that he will. He's qualified and everything, but that happened right before the time we were supposed to fly.
Wow.
So complex. So
Yeah,
listen,
but
be
yes.
aware, pay attention,
Take them.
let your true north be your guide.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Keep it simple, right?
Yeah.
Follow
Absolutely.
your fulfillment, follow your bliss and your happiness.
Hmm.
And yes, and you'll get it. You'll stay
That's
on
right.
course.
Did we
And
miss
freedom, of
anything?
course. And freedom.
And freedom. That's right.
And freedom.
That's right. So,
Yeah. I think
okay.
that's good.
So I don't want to miss anything. Did we miss anything? I
Nope,
think
we
this
didn't
was a
miss
really,
anything.
really,
We got it all covered. We put it all in there.
I think we did. I think we did.
Yes.
So, Happy New Year, everybody. We are going on
Yep.
this very exciting year of 2024. At least I get to hang out with you, Lisa. You get to hang out with
Mhm.
me, and we get to hang out with y'all. So, if you feel so inclined to like, subscribe, and share, we'd really appreciate that. We really appreciate you. And Lisa, I'll see you on the flip side.
See you on the flip side.